right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
It's your morning addiction. Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell.
It looks like an invasion of a country, hundreds of thousands of people. And that same thing's going to happen to us if the Republicans don't get elected.
The Zimmer News Team.
When it comes to the Save America Act, which is fundamental.
And now introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
Leading establishment backed Haley Stevens by a little more than a percentage point. Though the race has not yet been called, El-Sayed is already turning his attention to his potential opponent in November, Republican Mike Rogers.
Well, the DSA surge is alive and well in Michigan. In Missouri, you won't have to worry about paying more sales tax unless they raise the rates. And if you want to start an initiative petition, get those clipboards and pens ready and camp out outside your nearest big box store. Welcome into Wake Up Missouri. I'm Randy Tobler. John Marsh alongside Drake Whitman. Stephanie will be in very shortly. And gentlemen and Drake, it was a big evening last night.
A lot of interesting stuff for a primary. That's what we were saying as we were tracking all the issues along. And like you said, watching Michigan, did see Wesley Bell knock off Corey Bush trying to make a comeback in the congressional seat in St. Louis. Not going to happen.
Well, I think people had it with Corey Bush and her shenanigans. She was probably an outlier in terms of the radical progressive left.
The squad.
Yeah. And, boy, the Amendment 4 and 5 got hammered big time, of course.
Big time.
Tight race on Prop 1 for those of you in our Columbia market. Did that pass by just a hair on the chin?
Brian says under 100 votes, and something like 80-some.
I was talking to Brian about that. I said, Brian, 80 votes? Is there an automatic recount? We're going to have to catch up on that. I don't know the provisions for that.
I don't either.
Curtis Trent in Springfield, I think, was defeated. Is that right? By, again, a small margin. So Don Ludezader will be joining us at about 6:35 for that. Brian will join you, John, at 7 o'clock to talk about that, about the returns in mid-Missouri as well as nationwide or statewide. It was I stood in line for about 35 minutes last night at around 6 o'clock. My wife stood in line a little bit earlier than that for 45 minutes. It was very interesting. Big turnout.
What number were you? Do you know?
Yeah, we were over at Lenore Woods
really?
in eastern Columbia there.
I was telling folks, I don't think I've ever stood in line at the Ashland Optimist, and I went in the middle of the day and definitely stood in line. Not for very long. They were moving quite efficiently, but the turnout was high.
Almost 44% turnout in Cole County.
Whoa.
That's incredible.
Yeah, 43.7.
That's amazing.
And the clerk was saying 40, so he pretty much nailed it.
Well, what I'm hearing from a lot of people, whether they voted yes or no on 4 and 5, is like, man, I just was pummeled with negative ads, very frightening. The sky is falling ads if I vote for 4 or 5. My rights as a Democrat, a citizen of a democracy, will be taken away if the initiative petition process is modified. My sales tax will go up. I will have more of a tax burden. It'll be terribly abusive on my personal expenditures.
Governor Mike Keogh addressed that very fact, the whole fear factor on that stuff, and he sounded when we talked to him yesterday that he was a little wary of what was going to happen with 4 and 5 because of those fear factor AI generated ads that made the rounds.
So Missouri will continue to languish as a state who punishes you for your hard work. We will probably not see growth. We will not see business influx here. They will influx to Tennessee. And last time I checked, not that Kansas is that, I don't know that they're a better tax environment, but last time I checked, didn't we have some big enterprise where guys put on helmets and pads and they moved somewhere else out of Missouri? Didn't I remember that?
I don't think people are moving to Kansas because
Brownback's folly, right?
Of the Chiefs. But I do think, one issue that I do think is going to come up this year is school choice. And if you're not, I think number one, people move because of jobs, right? And is the business there? Can I get a good job? Do I have an opportunity for a promotion at another company? the second thing I think is all about schools. And anyone who has looked at getting a job in St. Louis or Kansas City, schools is number one. And, who cares if you can get a job for $20,000 more in St. Louis or Kansas City? You have to deal with cost of living, and then you have to deal with schools. And oftentimes that increase isn't enough for you to pay for your kid to go to private school. And then guess what? Those charter schools that they do have in St. Louis and Kansas City are on a lottery system. You can't guarantee that you can get in. So in my career, I've looked at going to a city, and you know what you're doing if you're looking at working in Kansas City? You're looking at living in Kansas, because they have school choice and better schools, better performing schools right over the line. And that's what we see a lot. There's a ton of people who live right over the line who are then commuting into Kansas City for work because of schools.
As I understand it, we have a something in the Constitution that says there can't be a direct, like a voucher system from the coffers to the people. And that's why we have this system of the private donations with a tax credit and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, the voucher issue, Steph can relate. It's been hit on session after session at the Capitol for decades.
And you can talk about the voucher issue, but I think the other thing, there are things like open enrollment that have been talked about at the legislature. There are things like opening of charter schools, something that they're trying to, they try to open the door and do it here in Boone County, and they're getting lawsuits left and right when they just want to open one new charter school. So there are different forms of school choice that I think could make Missouri an attractive place for young families that we've struggled with so far.
It's really an interesting thing. If you zoom out and you look at the constitutional amendment initiative petition process over the past, 7, 8 years, maybe more, 9. It appears as though this red state, at least in national elections, in the presidential election, very red, and in our, local General Assembly elections, very red state, but we are getting increasingly blue in our public policy because of the initiative petition process. And, the Amendment 3 is a prime example of that. Medicaid expansion, another example of that.
That's certainly true. And I think last night, a lot of people were looking for a common theme. What was it that drove people? And Missouri voters, it's always been really interesting. Like you said, Randy, they voted red at the top. They voted red locally. And then and overwhelmingly voted for these left-wing issues, whether it's full abortion up until birth, right? That passed last cycle. Whether it's Medicaid expansion. And then last night you see the A4 and A5 go down pretty big. Crushed. That's right. And but at the same time, you saw candidates in very competitive primaries who took very different stances on those amendments, and candidates who supported, for example, A5 ended up crossing the finish line. So there doesn't seem, you can see, okay, people are really mad about A5. Well, then all the candidates who supported A5, you would think would have been in trouble, and that wasn't necessarily the case. And so it's hard to walk away from last night and say, okay. And I think there are a lot of people who said this consultant's doing really well. They're really dialed in on the people, and they're running the best campaign. And it was a mixed bag on consultants as well. So it's really hard to walk away this morning and say it was this yesterday. It seemed like it's a mixed bag.
How about a rebuke of the General Assembly? If they can't get things done, if they're not moving on issues.
You saw a lot of incumbents reelected, or renominated, if not reelected.
Yeah.
Didn't apply to Curtis Trent.
You saw some incumbents go down, not only Curtis Trent, but a couple of House members as well. That's a tough one.
I think a lot of people with the sales tax, the income tax issue, were just afraid of the unknown. People are just fearful of the unknown. That's what I heard. It's like I don't want my sales tax going up to 10 or 12 or 15%. I don't want my legal expenses, my accountant, my services. I don't want my plumber services being sales tax. I don't mind paying sales tax on my car repair for my radiator cap, but I don't want the hourly labor being taxed. And that's what people are worried about. And
the other issue we haven't touched on, and I know we will this morning, was Denny Hoskins' 11th hour announcement that the petition challenging the newly drawn Missouri congressional maps is null and void. He says it's unconstitutional.
That as well as, so on the congressional maps, as well as there was an initiative petition before him called Respect Mo Voters that would also make significant changes to the initiative process and also rule that one unconstitutional as well.
So if he was going to do that and nullify the petition to have a referendum on the congressional districts, right? Why all the big flap in the last several months over whether the signatures are good or not? That issue didn't even come up, did it? Yesterday? Why not just declare from the get-go this is unconstitutional? I'm not even going to look at the signatures because I don't think it's constitutional.
And then the opponents run right back to the courtroom.
He was asked yesterday in his press conference about that, and I think his answer was, hey, I'm given a statutory deadline. Today's the day I'm supposed to make the decision. I'm meeting my statutory deadline things. And if you go back historically and look at Secretary of State's decisions, I've been doing this for a long time. I can't remember if anyone's ever done it early. I could be wrong, but it's not. It's not uncommon. And I think if you went back and looked at when those decisions were made, commonly made on the last day.
Well, we want to know your reaction to the election results. 573-874-9390, our text line. The phone line, 800-529-5572. At the end of the day, Stephanie, you've said something that you've said back a while, and I think you've said it more than once.
I'm wise beyond my years, Randy.
and modest to boot.
For sure, 100%.
You are wise beyond your years.
Now, if she just remembered where she put her car key.
There you go.
I know, darn it.
So, what you've said that, hey, the state income tax is not really my biggest burden. It's the federal taxes that we get hammered on, right? Between Medicare tax and Social Security tax and withholding and your income tax. Do you think that people just don't feel that hurt by the income tax because our rate's relatively low in Missouri?
I mean, I think if we're comparing federal versus state, obviously your federal tax is more of a burden. We didn't have the opportunity to say, hey, feds, we want less federal income tax. Yesterday we had the opportunity to say lower state income tax. When you're talking about these burdens, so many people talk about property tax. They talk about personal property tax.
Yeah.
I'm not a mathematician, but if I go to I actually did. I looked at my tax return. I picked up my receipts, and if I'm looking at income tax versus property tax versus personal property tax in the state, the income tax is my biggest problem.
There you go. That's Stephanie Bell. I'm Randy Tobler, along with John Marsh and Drake Whitman. Caller or a texter says, if you have a problem with people voting down 4 and 5, I can't disagree. Tell your politicians to write clearly defined bills. I think what he means is, tell us what we're getting instead of the income tax.
I have a retort to that, but we don't have time for it here.
6:35, Don Luzader joins us. Daily DC Rundown coming up.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
When I was a professor, I used to tell my students all the time, I want you to see me, I want you to see you how I see you. I see the potential in these young people, in my students. And I'm using that as an anecdote because when I think about this region, I see a region that is a sleeping giant.
John Marsh is not a sleeping giant. That was Wesley Bell. Here's John with the Daily DC Rundown.
Yep, Representative Wesley Bell beat former Congresswoman Cori Bush in the heated Democratic primary. In Missouri's 1st congressional district, the race, the latest display of intra-party rifts between establishment Dems and the Democratic Socialists over the future of the party and the U.S. alliance with Israel, given the district's heavily Democratic-leaning bill favored to win in November. The Dems' progressive wing aiming to notch its biggest victory yet Tuesday and deliver a high-profile blow to the center-left establishment in the ideological battle, but the anticipated triumph in battleground Michigan's Democratic Senate primary looks like it's going to have to wait. The race between progressive candidate Abdul El Sayed, former Wayne County Health Director, and Representative Haley Stevens, the more moderate contender, still too close to call this morning. President Trump renewing his warning to Iran, saying the U.S. could still strike the country really hard if negotiations between Washington and Tehran collapse again. If they back out again, they're going to get hit really hard. Trump told Fox News, they know that, they understand that. I have no choice. They can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. And he said military action still remains an option of this latest round of diplomacy fails.
Thank you, John, with the Daily DC Rundown. You know, I heard General Jack Keane make a chilling statement that I think it's been in the back of my mind. And when I hear that guy say it, it's like, okay, okay. He said yesterday, maybe it was yesterday, the day before, that it's not, our intelligence agencies know very well that Qatar and Pakistan, or as Barack Obama would say, Pakistan, are in bed with Iran. They are sympathetic to Iran. They're compromised. They're not favorable to the U.S. And yet they are the ones that are mediating these negotiations. I've thought that all along. I thought, since when is Pakistan our friend? India's our friend. Pakistan is not our friend. They've never been our real friend. I mean, we get along, but didn't they harbor Osama bin Laden?
In Abbottabad.
And Qatar is not our friend.
I mean, sometimes, like in candidate races, you're picking the least of the worst, like the best of the worst.
But he's talked.
We don't have a lot of friends.
But over and over, he's talked about, well, they made a request. They said, now, hold on, come on. We're working on something. I think they're playing Donald Trump like a violin. I hate to say it, but what is he? I don't know.
And the Pakis are big Iranian oil customers, too.
It's a crazy, crazy, crazy world, isn't it? Very tight races in several Missouri jurisdictions, including Springfield, where we talk with Don Luzader in just a little bit about a very tight state Senate race there. Stay tuned. Into the program. Tell us about the vibe last night around the polling places, the turnout, and a hotly contested state Senate primary race.
Absolutely. Yeah, good morning. So Greene County Clerk Shane Scholler, got to hand it to him. He did an excellent job of predicting voter turnout. He's been saying all week about 30%. I think the final number was just over 31% voter turnout in Greene County. Now, when I went to the polls yesterday probably about 5:10, 5:15, there was not a long line, but after I was there for a while, everyone was coming in after work and voting. So there were definitely some lines at the polls. That's a very good turnout for a primary election of this type. But obviously, I think what drives people out are those constitutional amendments, people feeling really strongly, obviously, against Amendments 4 and 5. When you have 82% saying no to number 5 and just under 80% saying no to Amendment 4, that is pretty overwhelming. And then, our big upset of the evening was Lori Rook. Now, Lori Rook, this isn't her first run for public office. She finished third in a crowded field 2 years ago for state treasurer in the GOP primary. But she took on Curtis Trent. And I got to tell you, it is quite the upset because this carries some significant implications when it comes to leadership in the Senate. Trent has been serving as assistant majority floor leader, and he had intended to run for majority floor leader in 2027. So Lori Rook ran her campaign on being, an outsider, not part of the Jefferson City establishment. She self-funded her campaign, loaned herself $300,000, and in all raised around $352,000 for her Senate campaign. Trent had raised a lot more for his campaign, so he outspent her, but she won in the end.
What was the critical issue? I mean, do you have an idea of what turned the tide there?
Well, it seems like the critical issue everywhere right now is data centers. She says that there was a lack of transparency there and that they differed in how they framed Trent's record in the state legislature. He leaned on his track record. She attacked it. She portrayed him as part of the Jefferson City establishment and a friend to lobbyists. And then Rook made data centers a core issue of her campaign. She had strong opposition to a big data center project under development in Webster County that we've been covering here near the Marshfield area. And she said she would support a statewide ban on data centers, at least for the short term. Well, Curtis Trent also called for a moratorium, but I think she really made that a big part of the campaign, and a lot of her messaging was that he is pro-data centers.
I think, I mean, that issue came up in other campaigns. Specifically, I would call out like the Mike Deering versus Trisha Burns race, and Trisha Burns tried to make it a big issue against Mike Deering, and he won pretty handily. So I don't know statewide that issue was a deciding factor. Again, breaking down the election results last night I think is difficult because we saw different things in different races, and it's like Amendment 5 goes down big, but then in some of the contested primaries, the candidate who supported Amendment 5 is the one that ended up winning. What do you think that race says about the changing dynamics in Springfield? Certainly as we head toward the general, Springfield's going to have one of the hottest contested Senate races in the state. I think the hottest contested.
Yeah, and this particular race that we've been talking about, according to some numbers that we've seen, it was the most expensive in the state. There was more money spent on this Senate race than any other. So, Lori Rook, what kind of, does she have is she going to be able to carry this for the GOP? Don't know a lot about her opponent on the Democrat side, but I do think that this is certainly going to be a very key issue to watch, because the question is now, do the Republicans retain control of that seat?
Well, and I think the big question down there is going to be Melanie Stinnett versus Betsy Fogel.
Oh, that Betsy Fogel has been around. She is one of the stronger Democrat candidates we've had in this area over the years. But Melanie Stinnett, she is a go-getter. She is an up-and-comer in the GOP. And that will be a very fun race to watch.
And for those of you who are interested in health care, talking about your pocketbook issues and your existential health issues, Melanie is a health care professional, so take a look at her resume. That's Don Luzader joining us on Wake Up Missouri, as you hear him, of course, in our Southwest market there in Springfield and beyond. He joins us, and don't let him fool you guys. He said that there wasn't a line when he voted last night. That's because when Don gets out of his car and walks toward the polling places, you know how the seas parted for Moses and the Israelites? That's the rest of the story here on Wake Up Missouri.
Don,
thank you.
Hey, Don, quite the showing for our incumbent congressman in Southwest Missouri.
Yeah, Eric Burleson ran against a couple of guys who had not ventured into political office before and really won rather easily in his race, as did Mark Alford. So District 7 and District 4 was really kind to the incumbents. Eric Burleson ended up getting 74% of the vote over John Casey and Grayson Hunt, a couple of guys that we didn't really know a lot about. We learned a little bit about their campaigns and what they stood for. But again, political newcomers. Burleson's very popular here in Southwest Missouri. And so, I think that that's a feather in the cap for him and for Mark Burleson. Up in the 4th District, he got 78% of the vote in that race. And there were some of our northern Ozarks counties that are included in Alford's district.
Don, when Governor Mike Keogh kind of joined us yesterday morning making his pitch for Amendment 4 and Amendment 5, we asked him about the loaded, the AI-generated, nasty political advertising, and the governor was not too complimentary of those attempts, and even yesterday early on, it sounded like he had questions about what that would mean for the ultimate failure of 4 and 5.
Well, and I think we all, in discussions, at least privately, said that we didn't have a good feeling about the passage of Amendment 4 and Amendment 5 just based on everything we've seen. I mean, I've talked to people who have been up in the Kansas City area. Of course, here, even in Southwest Missouri, you see a lot of no on 4, no on 5. The thing you got to do is at least give credit, even though some of these ads have been pretty nasty. You got to give credit to the anti-Amendment 4 and anti-Amendment 5. They got their message out, and I think a lot of people paid attention to it.
Don, as I think about talking to people about Amendment 4 and 5, many of whom are red meat Donald Trump and anyone with an elephant on their shirt voter. When it came to these issues, they're angry. I heard, some of them were concerned about the uncertainty of what's going to replace the income tax if it goes away, and
right.
But I was hearing some undercurrents of anti-incumbency, a little rebuke of the General Assembly. Could that have played into the Curtis Trent-Lori Rook showdown?
Oh, absolutely. I think some frustration over the way. On the part of voters who felt like that maybe the people in Jefferson City weren't being honest with them in the way that Amendment 5 and Amendment 4 were being portrayed, and that they saw right through it. And as a result of that, people who have gotten behind those amendments, like Curtis Trent, they end up paying the price for it. I think that's a very accurate point.
Yeah, well, I think it's beyond that even. It just seems like, my gosh, we have this super majority, and we get milquetoast legislation very often. Like, where are the vouchers? Where are the, where's the hard-hitting conservative, because all politics is local. And I think I got a sense that people are just not happy with the fact that you got pretty much a super majority GOP General Assembly, but we keep getting a lot of, very blue, the previous question tactics, maybe could have done that even more and earlier, right? When, because I think that is the way to get things done. When you're in power, the Democrats have shown they like to take that power and abuse everyone with it. And the Republicans sometimes play nice guys, and they don't get, I think, from the voters' perspective, things done that, seemed like a drop kick. It should be a chip shot. So, and about chip shots at the miniature golf. How's the miniature golf going this year? Are you on the tour, doing well?
Yes, I've actually made a couple trips. I went to Nashville for the World Series of Competitive Putting. Didn't do well on that, but that's not really mini golf. That's more like putting, like golf putting. Okay. So I determined that the holes in one and obstacles and windmills are for me. So I went to a mini golf tournament in Wisconsin this past weekend up near Green Bay in Ephraim, Wisconsin. The red putter, we had 88 putters. I finished 32, or excuse me, we had 93 putters. I finished 32 out of 93, so I was fairly happy with my showing there.
Very, very good. Well, Tennessee doesn't have an income tax, and they've got those tournaments in Nashville. I'm just saying, don't leave us, Don. Don't leave us.
No, you're not going to have to worry about that.
Okay. All right.
He never met a clown's mouth he didn't like.
All right.
That's right.
All right.
You got it. Or a windmill.
All right. Hey, thanks very much for being with us. Appreciate it. All right. So, I just think there's some undercurrents here that are beyond the issues. A lot of frustration is the word. A lot of people I talk to that, I mean, when I'm drinking a beer with them or talking over the water cooler or just having a conversation about whatever, it's like, why can't we get these conservative, limited government? We had a text here, Stephanie, that basically a person says, forget about how we're going to pay the bills. Why don't they stop making the bills so high? Cut the spending. Lower my taxes one way or another because I don't want to spend it so much. I think there's just a lot of anger out there. We'll have to see what happens. All right. Hey, Eric Schmidt's going to join us. Senator Schmidt's going to join us at 7:35. Brian Hauswirth will be in at 7:08. He and John will give us an update on some issues for our mid-Missouri listeners and, of course, statewide perspective, too. So there's lots more coming up on Wake Up Missouri. Back with Make Missouri Healthy again in a few. Welcome back into Wake Up Missouri. How many of you spend a lot of time at your computer at work and or home?
Why are you looking at me?
Stephanie?
Why are you looking at me?
Well, I do. Raise your hand. Come on. John? Drake?
I feel attacked.
No. I'm just saying we all do. And have you also noticed, we've talked about it before, tech neck, right? How all of us between the computer and phone. I was standing in line waiting to vote last night. Everyone, including me, sitting there, we're all hunched over, our phone. Well, interesting study, Drake.
Yeah, I have a comment, and it's exclusively to hate on Brian Hansen. Anyways, he always has his chair up way too high.
Oh.
So whenever I look at the board, or you guys, when I come in the morning, if I don't adjust it, I slunch over. I hate it. Everyone who's seen me do anything says that I have fairly decent posture whenever I'm on the computer.
Yeah.
So keep that in your back pocket whenever you insult me.
I never insult you. If I do, I'm just reporting truths. Just truths. So the researchers did an interesting thing. They recruited study participants and said, look, you're going to participate in a game called the balloon analog game, where you get to pump, you push the button, you're pumping up a balloon. And you get in-game money for every time the balloon pumps up more. But if the balloon pops, you lose it all. And then, so they got people interested in this game. And then they brought them into a room where half of the participants had a tall chair with the keyboard and the computer basically at knee level, very low. The other groups had it at eye level, just above eye level. So really working up high. But the people had been sort of, trained, convinced, and jazzed up about this game. Well, it turns out that they filled out, as the game progressed, it turns out that the people who had the computer and the keyboard at a higher level actually, and they weren't told why, they were just told, to participate in the game. They actually took a little more risk with their balloons. They ended up actually winning more money. And their posture was noted to be remarkably better. They sat more upright. John, everyone's straightening up as we talk.
We are.
Everyone in their car is like, oh, they push back. Yep, there's that headrest. There's that headrest. I feel it now. So to figure out whether the game came from sitting up, the effect came from sitting up straighter or from slouching, they compared both groups to a separate group of 113 people who played the game sitting comfortably at a regular desk. And it pointed to the upright group as the real driver of the extra risk-taking, not the hunched group somehow becoming more cautious. So if you're hunched over, really hunched over, you're no less or more likely to be sort of complacent. But if you sit up straight, and they also reported more pride just when they were asked a mood questionnaire. They had more pride, the people that were sitting up higher. Isn't that interesting?
It's kind of like fake it till you make it. I always thought, you heard a lot when I was, young in my career, dress for the job that you want. And even if you have a phone interview or you have something important that you're not in person, put on nice clothing.
Yeah.
You'll perform better. You'll feel better.
Yeah.
And again, it's fake it till you make it. And so it sounds a lot like that.
Well,
you
I
can
guess,
kind of convince yourself or manifest.
Well, that's right. Yeah, if you smile, you're happy, right? And
I don't know about
which
that.
is why I smile a lot, so I'm a happy guy. So
did they weigh in the fact on the folks who like to use the stand-up desks for their computer?
Well, yes, and basically what he says is, finally, our results suggest that, this is a quote from the lead investigator, aside from deliberate power posing, incidental factors which affect posture in the real world, standing desks, ergonomic setups, may have impacts on individuals' behavior. So when mom, dad, grandma, grandpa told you, stand up, shoulders back, head high, there's something to be said for that. Isn't it wonderful how there are certain truisms in life? Certain truisms.
Grandma's
this is one
always
of them.
right.
And grandpa. That's right.
I'd say
Posture
grandma.
may sometimes nudge how you feel and act. So, everybody today, stand up, shoulders back, hold your head high. Back with more election coverage in just a few. Yep.
with Stephanie Bell.
It looks like an invasion of a country, hundreds of thousands of people. And that same thing's going to happen to us if the Republicans don't get elected.
The Zimmer News Team.
When it comes to the Save America Act, which is fundamental.
And now introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
And Manu.
Thank you. Is the rise of the DSA good for your party?
Look, we are a big tent party. And being a big tent party is a strength, not a weakness.
Well, there Chuck said it. Chucky, baby, I know how to grill a cheeseburger. No, I don't. Schumer says, hey, we're a big tent party. Boy, they are tiptoeing on the hot coals of the DSA infusion and insurgency. This guy, El Sayed in Michigan, is up by about a point, too close to call, but with 95% of the receipts in there, that Democratic senatorial primary race, hotly contested. Hotly contested races in Missouri the day after a big defeat, Stephanie, for Amendments 4 and 5. One passed, though, handily. That's good.
Yeah, great. I mean, we
The
have
parks and rec
wonderful parks.
Yeah.
We have, they're clean, they're beautiful. We've got lots of them, and especially in today's economy, it's nice to know that you can take your family on a quick road trip to some place that's just beautiful and clean and lovely.
No admission fees?
No fees. So really, really glad to see that. And, of course, they've made really great strides with soil erosion. I think that's been around. It's been voted on, I think, 4 times. So 40 years, is that right, Brian?
1984.
Yeah.
1984 it was created, and you're spot on. And what Stephanie, what you said there about the fact that there are the fees. We're one of 8 states that basically have free state parks for the people.
Yeah. It's frustrating.
It's
if
a
you
big
ever
deal.
go to a state that has, for example, beaches, a lot of times their beaches or lakes are at state parks. And I've rolled up in my minivan and they're like counting the people in the car. And they're like, all right, this is going to be $50. I thought today was my free day.
Brian, when you're at a pay beach, you don't mind paying to watch the girls in the bikinis, do you? You don't mind doing.
I don't think we have any of those in Missouri.
So Brian Hauswirth joins us, John Marsh on as well as always, and Drake Whitman. We are the team. So we talked with Don Luzader, how he stood in line a little bit. Well, he didn't have to stand in line because the seas parted. When you walked up to the polling places, did the seas part? And John, did you guys the seas part?
Well,
or did you stand in line?
I voted. I voted no excuse absentee on a Saturday a couple Saturdays ago. It was busy, but and I voted in Boone County, and it was busy, but no, there wasn't a huge line. I will say this, and I heard the interview with Don. Voter turnout varied. I know it was higher in Cole County than in many other counties. In Boone County, they ended up at 36% plus. She had forecast about 40. She was close. It was 36%. And they had lines of people at 7 o'clock last night. We didn't get any results on our live coverage till 8:30 at night, the first results.
Good job on that. And, of course, John, great job there. So a tight race. For those of you who aren't in the Columbia area, there was a really hotly contested proposition on the ballot for to raise a 1% tax for public safety, right?
Yes, it was.
A sales tax. What happened?
It passed, and I mean narrowly. And this is a Columbia story, but I would argue it is a statewide story as well. And it's statewide, folks, for those of you listening in southeast Missouri, Springfield, and elsewhere. We've got a lot of listeners in rural areas. It's statewide because many parents send their kids to go to school at the University of Missouri. And we had a horrific shooting back in September of last year during homecoming weekend where a young nursing student, Ayanna from over Battle High School, great family, was shot and killed, innocent bystander in a terrible shooting. Stevens College student, nursing student, yes. But University of Missouri President Choi has made this a big issue at times. So this kind of is something that the police have really pushed for. They're understaffed, obviously, and they're looking at hiring 50 additional police officers, 40 additional firefighters over 4 years. In terms of the numbers, Randy, a lot of the listeners that listen to our coverage in mid-Missouri are Pachyderm's members. And I went to the Pachyderm. A lot of our listeners were saying they were going to vote against it because they think the city should have cut in other areas. So I didn't have anything really scientific. It passed last night by the narrowest of margins. It passed by less than 100 votes, 15,042 to 14,957. It is within the margin. Technically, someone could request a recount, but it did pass nonetheless. It's a huge issue. The other thing Chief Schluty has told me is they're looking at a new headquarters in the police department. It's 93 years old. And she said this at the pachyderms meeting in front of a packed crowd. She said it to me on tape as well. She went to the police station in Lawrence, Kansas, and it was open. It looked like a real police station. Theirs is 93 years old. There's stuff that it's old. And they're looking. That building, by the way, is built. They're just going to have to renovate it down the way. But this is a huge issue
really
for the city of Columbia. But a big vote, and
really quite shocking. I mean, I never cease to be disappointed or hold my breath, holding out hope anymore for Columbia voters. We've had some pretty tight and hopeful, I think, on the conservative side, mayoral races, and we thought this is a great candidate, pro-business, well known in the community, and we get our hopes up, and they're dashed every time. And so it's no. I mean, Columbia votes Democrat, and so to support a public safety tax, I was pretty shocked by the results, especially as we're looking at these DSA candidates who say, right. I don't want any prisons, I don't want any police. For the Democrats in Columbia to show up, it shows how big of an issue this is, and I think a true rejection of that far left here in Missouri. Now, we saw things go differently, for example, in Michigan, but you look at the Wesley Bell, Cori Bush race, right? So I think in Missouri we are, I think, staunchly establishment Democrat, I think, is what we saw last night, especially with this public safety tax. But really, I didn't think it. I didn't think it was going to pass, Brian.
A lot of people didn't, and that Wesley Bell race is huge. He's, of course, Mizzou graduate, and you know him well, former prosecutor as well. It was one of those things that when we got the initial results, Stephanie and Randy, last night, and we were, on live coverage locally in our area, but at least in the area I'm in, but it was up by about 200 votes, and those numbers they fluctuated a little bit, but they never ever trailed in that race, and that's a big deal. And Stephanie brings up a very good point, because the Republicans that vote in very conservative pro-police, some of them definitely, because I heard it from their own lips, did not vote for it, which means there were Democrats, clearly, I don't know how many, that voted for it, and Republicans that voted for it as well, just enough to get it over the top. It couldn't have passed at a closer
Republicans
margin.
are angry at profligate spending on the part of government at all levels.
Correct.
They're just angry about it.
Well,
and before they open up their wallets to pay more, they want to see restraint. I hear that over and over and over.
And you are, and exactly, I wanted to make that point. You're absolutely right. To be clear, they weren't saying, no, we don't want the police to have it. What they argued to the police chief, really they were arguing this to the mayor and to Mr. Seawood. Cut the spending. Quit spending this money on the homeless. You're spending all this money on the homeless is what they were saying. You're spending on all these social programs. Now, Seawood,
city payroll's big.
Yeah, and Seawood disputed some of that when he was at the pachyderms, and it got a little heated. It really did. It was respectful, but the bottom line is but some of them did vote no because they feel like the city should have cut in other areas. One other quick note, and I know you guys got a lot of territory to cover. You'd ask about turnout in Boone County, Columbia, 36%. So again, pretty close on that.
Historically, it is.
Well, it's over what we normally see.
No, but I mean, historically, what is it, 18, 20%?
Well,
in non-generals?
In a race like this, about 20 to 25%. Now, there was this Columbia City Council race also that was really big that drew a lot of people as well, but the amendments were the big ones. But that is what we have. What
does your reporting say about mid-Missouri voters? And John, weigh in on this too, please. On Amendment 4 and 5. Again, I had an awful lot of people
failed overwhelmingly in Cole County, just like it did statewide.
What's your reporting tell you? Talking and rubbing shoulders with voters and politicians and everyone. What's the vibe? Why did conservative voters vote down a sunset on the income tax?
John,
any ideas?
Well, my take on it was one was what the governor said on some of those ads that played on the fear factor of a lot of folks out there, and people weren't real sure about what the parameters would be. Indeed, if the income tax went away, that was a combination of things, and you brought up the whole thing of wondering about how how the imaging was done by lawmakers on the whole ballot language.
And on that topic, I mean, people said, we need more details. We need more details. I found that very interesting because John and Brian have been around long enough to know that whenever you try to put details in a constitutional amendment, that's the first thing people say. Why are we putting all these details in our Constitution? Why is the marijuana amendment 40 pages? Isn't the Constitution where you put your foundational principles? Same people. And so I think that was a really interesting argument to hear because often, I mean, and there's been litigation in the past when people try to put details in the Constitution, and this has been settled by the courts. People said this isn't actually a constitutional amendment. This belongs in statute.
Well, I was hearing echoes of the Nancy Pelosi. You have to pass the amendment to see what's in it with regard to, hey, exactly what are you going to sales tax me on? I'd like to know a little more specificity. I don't want a blank checkbook for the legislature. And whether or not that is constitutional or not, that's
I'll go back to the fact that I think U.S. Constitution, even with all the amendments, is something like 7,000 words.
True.
And the Missouri Constitution is something like 40,000 words. There's a reason why our U.S. Constitution has stood the test of time. Imagine at the time if the founders had put in all the details in our foundational document.
And
that's not what it's for.
And they did keep it. They did keep it simple. You real quick on opponents on proposition. Opponents on why they voted down Amendment 5. I heard from several Republicans in Columbia Boone County. One of the reasons they voted it down, they were worried about sales taxes. They were elderly people. They were retired, and they some of them did. They like Kehoe. These are people that like Kehoe, support him. They don't agree with him on this, and I heard from probably 10 people that I know that are elderly that voted against it. And you ask about Amendment 5 and 4 in Boone County. This is Boone County, a Democratic county, but we have a lot of Republicans too. It failed Amendment 5, 39,700 to 6,000 in favor on Amendment 5. That's the sales tax. That means a lot of Republicans voted no. And on Amendment 4, the initiative petition, 39,000 against 7,000 in favor.
Remember all of the people who were super mad that we had to vote on bingo a few years ago? And they were like, why are we voting on the bingo? Isn't this something the legislature should be able to take care of? It was in the Constitution. And so if you put it in the Constitution, then every time you want to change it, even if you consider it a detail or something ancillary, guess what? You got to go back to the people every time.
That's exactly right.
We're all in the communications business here, and can we all say that if you're ever going to run for office, hire the people that ran the no on 4 and 5 votes? Those fear factor, you're losing your democracy if you vote for 4. Its democracy is going away. I mean, come on, that's not what. But, hey, that's effective.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brian. I don't know. It's a wild, wild, wild world, isn't it? We'll be back in a few more with Wake Up Missouri. And Eric Schmidt, Senator Schmidt, joins us at 7:35. Wake Up Missouri. Senator Eric Schmidt joins us in about 10 minutes. You won't want to miss that. I caught this story, Stephanie, John, Drake, about, we've talked about El Sayed, who's leading by about a point, still too close to call in Michigan. But you look around the country, things going on. This gubernatorial race in Wisconsin with this woman, Francesca Hong. Have you seen much about her?
A little bit.
She is very, very interesting.
Is she the one that wants to get rid of Thanksgiving?
Yes, wants to get rid of Thanksgiving. Okay. She said that. She also said that, here's a quote, "I ate 2 bites of my kid's cheeseburger at a Culver's in Black River Falls and told him they ran out of ice cream. Mostly just wanted to leave because I was on the verge of an anxiety attack. Too many old white people who didn't think we spoke English." Now, she's Korean. Apparently, she's married to, or was married to, I don't know currently where the status is, I guess a Caucasian guy, and they have a mixed race kid. But here's a woman who wants to eliminate Thanksgiving, doesn't feel good in Culver's because there's too many old white people.
Does she has only regularly hang out with other Korean people?
She has a legitimate chance of being the Democrat nominee for the governor of Wisconsin. That's where we're at in August of 2026.
I had an opportunity to talk to Mark Alford last night about this, and I said, what are you hearing when you're in D.C., like amongst your, he talks to Democrats, right? He's working with them. And I said, are they terrified of this takeover of the Democrat Party? And he basically said, yeah, like they're not going to, but they're not saying it publicly, and called them out and said when we get kind of some, I feel like he's right. When we get a crazy person in the Republican Party, a lot of times Republicans align and say, that's not what our party stands for. Yeah. You're not hearing, you're just hearing silence from the Democrats. They care more about winning than letting their party be overtaken by people who, I don't think John Fetterman wants to get rid of Thanksgiving. I don't think he wants to abolish prisons. And he's the only one that's actually coming out and saying, this isn't my party. Where's everyone else on this?
Well, you've said, though, in the political world, it's about winning.
It is about winning.
You do what you need to do to win. You've said that before.
I think it's, but at what cost? Because these people might be able to win in the primary, but are they going to, I think they might suffer in the general. Again, in Missouri, I think you've seen more establishment Democrats take hold. You saw Wesley Bell beat Cori Bush. But I think it's going to be harder and harder for them to distance themselves from this national message of abolish ICE, abolish the police department, get rid of your prisons, end Thanksgiving. So, and I think if you're a journalist, if you're an opponent in a campaign, push them on these issues. Hey, these are people who are identifying with your party. Where are you at on this? And how come you're not calling them out?
Remember the polling the Dems were doing? They grudgingly said that, especially the young voters out there, and I think they were talking, under 40, said over 50% of them would support a Democrat socialist.
Yes. Well, that's where we're at, and they're an influential demographic. Drake, you can speak to that. I mean, I think you're an outlier in your demographic, being a more of a conservative guy at your age.
Yeah, we're stupid. We could have one finger with poop and one with Nutella, and we'd be confused on which one's which at this point.
Well, let's ask Senator Schmidt if he likes Nutella when we come back, and other weighty issues like his Protect Sports Act that he's working on, right? And other things. He got some aid for the flood sufferers. So Eric Schmidt coming up in the few.
Has America been
Chapter, big primary election and a couple of big statewide ballot issues that went down in ignominious defeat yesterday. But now we switch to the national scene and talk to Senator Eric Schmitt. You probably have some thoughts about that. Welcome into the program, Senator, and you probably have some thoughts about yesterday's election results in Missouri.
Well, it's the good thing about our election process, right, is it's an ongoing conversation with voters, and you see where they're at. And we had some competitive primaries out there for 2 congressional seats, and we're moving on to November now. I think for Republicans, really uniting and making sure we hold the House and hold the Senate, and part of that's going to run right through Missouri.
Let me ask you about something. You have a new colleague, Senator Graham's, former Senator Lindsey Graham, God rest his soul, sister. And I just wanted to play a little bit of this for you and have you comment and react to if you've had any interactions with her yet.
One of the first things I did was co-sponsor the Save America Act. As I said earlier, I'm willing to stay through recess to get it done. What's up with recess anyway? Who gets a month off from work?
So she went on to say she'd like to nuke the filibuster, too. Have you interacted with Darlene Graham, and what is your initial impression?
I have. She seems very nice, and as I've talked about on your show, Lindsay and I were friends and would go to dinner and play golf. We didn't agree on every issue. We had some disagreements on some foreign policy stuff from time to time, but we worked together on a lot of things, including the Save America Act. Making sure ICE was fully funded. He will be missed, and I know that he would be very, very proud of his sister and the work that she's already doing here in the Senate.
We do want to ask you about the Protect College Sports Act and get an update on that. I know you've been leading the charge on that and so many other very, very important issues in our public policy. Where are we on that? Going to make it across the finish line?
Yeah, it's a big week for that because I think there's a stack of things to do here, and whether or not we, have a work period in August or not remains to be seen. I'm willing to be here, as Senator Graham mentioned, to get the Save America Act done. We'll see how that plays out. But, you've got chaos right now in college sports. You've got this unlimited transfer situation. You've got eligibility rules that can't be enforced. You have 27-year-olds playing against 17-year-olds. It's just kind of wild. And so the truth is Congress is the only entity that can grant antitrust exemption status to a governing body to set the rules and enforce them. That would, because right now it's just subject to these lawsuits, and the NCAA loses every time, and you have no rules. And so we come in and say, look, 5 years of eligibility, one-time transfer. You have a sort of a cap on the spending that can be spent. Athletes can still get their NIL deals. So it really provides some stability in a market that is just kind of at this point really unruly. And I just, we've talked about it on your show before as a fan. College athletics is a very uniquely American thing. It doesn't exist like this anywhere else in the world. It helps us in Olympics. Women, for example, have had a ton of opportunities now through Title IX, and we don't want to see that stuff go away, because if you're losing money on your football program, or all your money is going towards your football program, that used to subsidize all the non-revenue sports, women's sports, Olympic sports like baseball don't make money for the school. And we're at risk of losing all of that. So I think it's important to provide some structure here, and I'm hopeful that we can get something done this week or into the weekend.
I mean, speaking of college sports, I really think we need to show Freddie the German the new improvements at Faurot Field. Are you going to be able to help us out with that and get him to Missouri?
Oh, yeah. No, I am pumped. I've gotten to know Coach Drink very well, and Laird Veach, I met with him last week. And, of course, Moon Choi does a great job at Mizzou. And I'm looking forward. I'm hoping to be there for that ribbon cutting, which is before that Thursday. I think it's the first game, the Arkansas Pine Bluff game. And so I intend to be at Faurot a bunch this fall. I'm excited about the Tigers. I think their offense is going to be pretty explosive, and there's a lot of turnover on the defensive side of the ball, but they've really, over the years, coached those guys up and have had really good defenses over the last few years. So I'm excited about this team.
Also, some
good
good
field. By the way, it looks awesome. Like, I've just seen pictures. I've been out there for some of the construction, but not right now with the Rock M. It's just the pictures I've seen. It just looks great.
It does look awesome. Other awesome news out of D.C. this week. It looks like President Trump signed off and approved on this money for our storm victims. Big deal.
Yeah. We're always going to lead the effort on that, to give Missourians the help that they need. I mean, unfortunately, we live in a part of the country where in the spring we've got tornadoes and we've got flooding issues from time to time. And we just want to do everything we can. And I will give the president a ton of credit here. He is, every time we've asked him on this, he's been very, very responsive and has moved quickly on these things. And so we're appreciative of that.
Senator Eric Schmidt joins us on Wake Up Missouri. Lots going on in D.C.
Senator, we've watched the big story today on the Democrat socialist candidate, looking like he's about to put it over the top in his primary race up there. What's your take on that for the midterms? Are they going to profit from it or shoot themselves in the foot?
Well, I think we're very much in play now and can win Michigan. The Republicans, that is. Mike Rogers is a credible candidate running against somebody who was really, really radical. I would just tell you, I have maybe a little bit of a different take than most. I think from an electoral perspective, this is for Republicans, it's a good thing for our prospects. I just think as an American, this is a disaster that's unfolding before our eyes right now, that you have, one of the two major parties that is embracing positions like, abolishing the Supreme Court, abolishing the Senate, defunding the police, defunding ICE, mass migration. I mean, this is nuts. And it's becoming more and more mainstream. I mean, look, my grandparents were from mid-Missouri on my dad's side. On my mom's side, my grandfather on my mom's side was a Democrat. It would just be unrecognizable to my grandfather, this Democrat Party. It's not, Harry Truman, it would be rolling in his grave. It's not a mainstream party anymore. And I think that is indicative of why Democrats can't win statewide elections in Missouri right now. It's just become radicalized. And it's not just a hammer and sickle wave in New York anymore. This is in Michigan, right? This is in Michigan. So I don't think they can deny anymore the talking heads that go on these Sunday shows who try to rationalize it and say, oh, this is just a isolated thing in New York. That's not true. And it's growing. And I think that's not a good thing for our country.
Talking with Senator Eric Schmidt, I saw a reel of your very, very impassioned complimenting of Todd Blanche and the stuff he's done in his short time as the interim Attorney General. He passed through committee yesterday. Susan Collins has come out late yesterday afternoon, said she's not going to be a vote for on his confirmation. You really chronicled a lot of things that Todd Blanche has done. Is he going to be confirmed?
It's going to be tight. I hope so. I'm headed over to the White House after this for an anti-fraud sort of roundtable with the vice president. I just think that the focus that Todd Blanche has brought to that department now is really welcome. I mean, it's focusing on violent crime. We've got, murders are down to, the murder rate in this country is at 126-year low. That's pretty significant. And there's a focus of the Department of Justice now going after that. We've seen it. They've been helpful in St. Louis, for example. The FBI and the Department of Justice have been all in and trying to clean up the streets in St. Louis. That's been very successful. They've done it in Memphis. And also this, this anti-fraud focus now in Minneapolis, California, and across the country. That's what voters want. That's what taxpayers want. They don't want this weaponization we saw under the Biden regime where they were going after Catholics who attended traditional Latin Mass. They're going after parents who showed up to school board meetings under the Patriot Act. I mean, this was crazy stuff. So I just think it's a breath of fresh air. I think he's immensely qualified, and I hope he gets through.
Senator, before we let you get out of here, you talked about looking at some of the sports issues as fans. What's your take on Sophie Cunningham and the whole WNBA thing on let girls play sports with girls?
Well, what I love about it is that it's just a common sense Missouri take. Like a lot of people up here, when I say something, they say that's common sense. I just think that's who we are in Missouri. It's just sort of like, it's straight to the point. It's just common sense. And that's all she's saying. Like, of course, men should not be able to compete in women's sports. Of course, 85% of the country believes that. But she's getting all this heat and all this, this pushback from people. I don't understand it, but she was obviously a standout, the all-time leading scorer at Mizzou. She's from mid-Missouri. I think we're very proud of Sophie Cunningham in our state, and good for her for like standing up and not backing down. So many times you see somebody say something like that, and then they get sort of like shamed into apologizing or something, and that's just not what she's doing, and I think that's a good thing.
Senator, yesterday, Drake Whitman, producer Drake, was telling us about some monumental trades that the Cardinals have made, and it came to my thought that as the MVP of the congressional baseball game, I don't know. I'm just thinking there could be an opportunity. It seems like it's a rebuilding year. You could go in there and do some mentoring. Have you given that a thought?
You're too kind. I love coming on your show. This is great. Great for the ego. I have lobbied Chaim Bloom, who texted me after the catch that I could just a one day contract with the Cardinals. I'd be happy. 12-year-old Eric Schmidt would be really proud of 51-year-old Eric Schmidt if that actually happened. And actually, the Mizzou coach, I guess maybe I should try to get an NIL deal with Mizzou before we close these loopholes. I don't know, one of the two.
Well, that was an epic catch. There is no doubt about that. And you paid a little price and got roughed up for it. But, man, I don't know what you're eating and what kind of supplements you're taking, but you healed up like a champ. Man, that was great.
I did. Well, the face was, that got bloodied up. But the elbows, because that was, that's the warning track. It's basically gravel. Because it's supposed to make the noise when you get onto the warning track to warn you you're about to hit the wall, right? So, I paid the price with the elbows and the nose for a little while, but I'm okay.
Well, we won't ever forget that. It was a great catch. And we won't forget your help here on the radio to explain all of the complexities going on in the busy world of D.C. and your world. Thanks so very, very much. Say hi to Vice President Vance for us when you visit him later.
I will.
All right.
I'll see him in about an hour here. Take
thanks
care,
so
guys.
much.
See ya.
Take care. All right. Always a great conversation with Senator Schmidt. What's coming up when we come back, John?
When Iggy absolutely, positively needs to be there overnight.
All right. Is it FedEx or UPS or someone else? We'll find out when we come back.
It's Wake Up
a package that contained the lizard. In a video, a man is seen opening a large box, and the iguana named Titan jumps out. He was shipped overnight, and I expected him just to be asleep and stiff, like most reptiles after shipping. Nope, Titan came out ready for all the smoke, owner Roderick Duncan said. Duncan and FedEx employees eventually captured Titan, who ran around the store. Appreciative of the assistance from his FedEx team, Duncan said they handled it like champs and adds, the crew was able to lure Titan out with a treat of collard greens and yams from one staffer's leftover lunch from a soul food restaurant across the street.
Wow.
So now you know what to catch your iguanas with.
That sounds similar to what they used to catch Rufus. Not as complex, but similar. Rufus,
yeah, both of them kind of heavily vegetarian, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Rufus, the kangaroo who eloped.
I figured out a way to catch flies this weekend. Did you see my tweet about it?
No, I didn't.
Well, we fight them at the lake, and you always get the one in your house. And at the lake, we've learned you can spray them. You can spray them with like a alcohol, liquid
Mister,
alcohol.
like,
yeah, and they'll drop out of the sky. And that seems like an easier way. But this weekend we had one, and it's the big one. It's buzzing in your face. It's like a
horsefly, one of those?
No,
just a substantial fly.
Pestering me for hours, and I finally looked at the three kids and I said, $20 for the first person who gets that fly. Man, they were out of their chair and it was dead in no time. So I think I have to. Now they're like, is it $20 for every fly? I said, absolutely.
That's a good
not.
question. We have there's a little entrance room, 10 by 8 room, sort of a 3-season room between the house and outside. And with the kids here for a couple of weeks, they left the door open from the main house to the outside. We had flies. They left and there were flies.
Sticky things. They're disgusting.
Yes, I bought those sticky rolls. They were awesome. I've got them hanging from the ceiling. Not exactly a home beautiful scene. But they were.
Like, what is it? Pennies in like a bag of water. We have a disco ball that's supposed to freak them out. And
the best thing ever invented, the bug assault.
Oh, is that the gun thing?
The gun that shoots a stream of table salt and blasts the flies right out of the air.
Okay,
wow.
I needed one of those.
I don't know though. Then you have to clean up the salt. I like the sticky trap and just have them go.
Then you just have hanging around. You just have this sticky goo with dead bugs.
It's a beautiful sight. It's a beautiful sight. I love it.
So like the glue traps for the mice, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love them, especially when they got caught by one leg and they're sort of struggling.
The kids rescued a lizard out of one of those last weekend. Yeah, those glue traps pick up anything, and that. Ugh.
This grass. Speaking of pests and varmints, this grass is growing like jungle weed. I'm having to mow the grass every 2 or 3 days, it seems.
Our farmers are really happy. I hear it's a great hay season.
Yeah. And yesterday I'm mowing the grass, and I found myself dodging snakes and little bunnies, little tiny bunnies. And I couldn't help but stop for the little snake, a little garter snake. I wasn't going to roll over a snake and chop him up. Be like Ninja-matic, the snake. Snake tartar, we call it. Little bunnies. And then the mama bunny rabbit was looking at me like, where'd my little bunny rabbit go to?
We used to have a whole lot of bunnies, and then we started hearing some weird sounds that we couldn't quite place. And finally, we saw the mating foxes outside, and we had wondered where all the bunnies went. And I haven't seen too many more bunnies.
Little bunny wabbits.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about mowing them over at my house. The dogs eat them all.
I wasn't going to say it, John, but yeah, that's pretty much.
Drake, you got to cue up the circle of life, okay?
Yeah.
Where are you at on that?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Well, that's the reality.
It's a Hakuna Matata for the bunny rabbits, huh?
Yeah, you're right. Well, it is the day after the primaries, and, of course, just tremendous hammering of Amendments 5 and 4. And, Denny Hoskins and his move to just say, well, we're not going to have that referendum to undo the General Assembly's redistricted map. We're just not going to do it. Missouri, what's it called? Missouri 1? Missouri 1st map?
The Missouri 1st map.
Yeah. Interesting play. Let us know what you think about that. We'll be back with more on Wake Up Missouri.
President Trump says a deal with Iran could come as early as today. In an interview with Fox News, he says talks took place all day on Tuesday and things are looking very good. He told Trace Gallagher that if this isn't ultimately agreed to, Iran will face severe consequences.
Well, it's Groundhog Day again in the Middle East.
Was that from yesterday or the day before or the day before that?
I think we could just probably have one soundbite and play it over and over. It was last chance. Take off on he needs to bring Donna Summers into the Oval Office. Last chance for war. Remember Last Dance? You don't remember that. That was the disco age.
I don't think she's kicking anymore.
It's like a naughty kid where you threaten them and you threaten them and you threaten them and you're like, okay. And eventually they have to feel the punishment before they understand that you're serious.
Did you come?
We did what, 12 days of bombing and that wasn't enough for them?
Did you come out of the box as a parent with the very first kid holding forth with consequences? Or were you a little wavering? We were a little wavering with our first child. We tightened that up after we learned that when you waver on consequences, it doesn't work out well. You have to follow through with consequences.
I can be really hard on them on certain things, but I think then they were very young and they went through COVID, and I think I loosened my restrictions during COVID because everyone was having a hard time. Also, I have this thing against people who are the youngest. My husband is the youngest. My sister and him often team up and say that, and they get away with everything. And if you've seen my third one, she looks exactly like me. She is like the most helpful and I think the nicest of my children. So I think she probably gets away with more than the others.
She takes after her mom.
Yeah.
There you go.
And she's the baby.
You wouldn't believe what Stephanie gets away with here, being the nicest of the team here. It's amazing.
I am definitely the meanest.
So, I don't know, but it reminds me of parenting. It's a good analogy, Stephanie. And in general, when leaders don't follow through with consequences, when law enforcement, the criminal justice system, doesn't follow through with consequences, with accountability, it doesn't work out well. The human condition is one that takes advantage of a lack of accountability. You say, well, I got away with a shoplift, so I think I'll maybe break in and steal a TV from someone's home. Well, you know what? That felt pretty good. There's a gun in that car. I think I'll take the gun. Well, maybe the whole car. Yeah, what the heck? I'm not going to get nailed for it because I'm a kid. I'm only 15. Juvenile laws, And I just think that's my personal opinion. What do y'all think? 573-874-9390, 800-529-5572. Consequences early, connecting misbehavior with accountability, timely to the offense, very important. And we're just not doing that in Iran.
I'm just confused because it's like with Iran, like we've given them the punishment. What else is there to do? It's like we've gotten the belt out.
And
what's next?
Yeah, but we haven't done the ultimate punishment.
But that's part of the struggle, right? The part of the struggle is, and when I just got back from a week in Israel, and I said part of the biggest problem for me is we see things through this Western lens, and we think that everyone else they're rational actors like we are. But when your people are literally suicide bombing and they don't care about human life, and they're coming from just a perspective that you can't even fathom. It's hard to it's hard to negotiate with someone. I think that's, being a lawyer, you're constantly trying to project what the other side's going to do, anticipate what the other side's going to do. What are they going to argue? What are they going to file next? What are they doing? And I think when you're dealing with two rational actors, that makes negotiating a little bit easier. When you're dealing with someone where we have trouble even coming up with what their next move is or what's important to them because their worldview is so different than ours. And again, you're looking at a country that they want world domination. And more than world domination, even, they don't want their country to be necessarily great because it could be great and they're taking all these actions. They want death to America. They want death to Israel. And that matters more to them than the strength and the betterment of their own country. It's very different than coming from, a country where we say, make America great again. Our biggest hope is we want our country to succeed. And when But when you start elevating, we want you to fail over our country to succeed, it's hard to negotiate with folks like that.
Well, yeah, it is. I think for a lot of people, too, in this country, the worst of it we have with our neighbors is the Mexican government turning another eye for a long time and letting illegals in, or Canada jacking up the price of lumber, and they overworked the phrase as an existential threat for Israel, but it is. They don't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah. But you say they, and this is where I'm, again, sort of flummoxed about this whole thing. We knew where the Ayatollah and all of his top regime were meeting, and we took them out. Don't we know where the IRGC leader is, or the leaders are? Why don't we take them out? Or has the intelligence now failed us? Is the Israeli intelligence now lagging? Why? Because the Iranian people, I don't think, share that worldview, Stephanie. I think it's the radical military and IRGC leaders and maybe some of the civil politicians. But why aren't we taking them out?
That's a fair point. Speaking of wars,
what are you laughing about? You're sitting here giggling and laughing.
I started a war in my own household because apparently the oldest was listening and heard that I said the youngest was the nicest and the most helpful.
I was afraid you were going to get some pushback.
And is debating whether that's true or not. Drew, I love you. I would have 5 more sons just like you.
Walking it back.
No, I'm serious. There's something about
But Mom still thinks she can out-sprint you, Drew.
That's fair.
Would you put that on a hot button?
There's something about being a boy mom. I love it. I do.
You can't walk this back, Stephanie. You're better off to move on and talk about another topic.
I'm in trouble.
You're better off. You better. I don't know how you're gonna. I don't know how you're gonna right this ship, but I'm sure you'll find a way.
I'm on Team Drew. I'm an oldest. I feel like my parents were harder on me than my sister, and I'm right. And yeah, being the oldest is tough. So he and I will always have that in common.
Every child has their virtue. Every child has their, like all of us, except you, as you remind us, has a dark side, a backside, a negative side. Those of us on the program, we know our weaknesses.
Drew, just to let you know, I'm also the oldest, and our moms are similar ages, and I just want to let you know I'm her favorite, so you can sleep well knowing that you're probably her favorite too. Let's start a war. Let's start a full war.
There are no favorites. I told them when they were young, my favorite is the one who sleeps the latest. Now, Drew, don't take that to heart because now that he's a teenager, he started to sleep late. But when they were young, they'd all try to wake up at 5 a.m. And I'm like, gosh, if we could just get to 6 a.m., I'd be
Drew's
happy.
my favorite because he has Jason Tatum cards, and he's a big Jason Tatum fan. I'm wearing the Tatums right now.
I'm not letting you guys hang out because I'm not letting him get into sports betting anytime soon.
Speaking of things said that are offensive, apparently I offended one of our listeners who said, I would like Dr. Tobler to know I was offended by his comment to John about paying to enter beaches to see young women in bikinis. An inappropriate comment. A doctor, a husband, father, and public figure.
I'll say it if your reputation's on the line, I guess.
Well, I mean, that was a joke in jest when we were talking about pay to go to beaches. And I was kidding John, mano y mano, about the kind of things guys talk about.
Don't draw me into this one.
So I will apologize to you, sir, but I
know sometimes
have a little laugh, Bruce. Come on, man.
Sometimes
it's mornings in Missouri.
Sometimes
have a little laugh.
Day after election night.
And I'm sure
I'm
sure Bruce has never, ever, 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 ever paused when there's been a beautiful woman with nice curvature and says, that's a beautiful woman. Yeah, Bruce.
Stop while you're ahead, Randy.
Yeah, I think you're just digging a hole, but sometimes our sarcasm and humor doesn't quite come through the microphone. But most of the time, you should know that we are just having a good time.
Just having fun.
And sometimes folks aren't super happy about my ageism comments, and we're having a good time.
James says, clearly this Bruce guy's never been in a male locker room. I mean, oh, Bruce, God love you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for weighing in. We are thankful for your ears, and I'm sorry I offended you.
You sound sorry.
Male locker rooms and scantily clothed people
sorry.
on the beach.
Randy's saying sorry, not sorry.
We named our son after Sean Connery because my wife could not get enough of the original Sean Connery James Bond movies. And I know I cannot live up to those standards in terms of, raw sex appeal.
Okay,
but I do my best to try to do other things to, live up to her standards.
That's your best?
To do that. Never been able to do that.
Another moment of personal privilege. Apparently, the traffic on the bridge is real bad, and all 3 kids are in the car. So, Amelia, I love you too.
Yeah.
The middle kid,
the middle
of course,
one just never gets anything.
She never gets any respect.
It's amazing how people get their feathers ruffled easily. Yeah.
That's right. Shaken, not stirred.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So we had some listeners that wanted us to ask Senator Schmidt some questions. I'm sorry we can't get all of those appeals in, and we try to do whatever we can in our limited time with senators.
I'm hoping to catch up with him at the state fair in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
He's usually there.
Yeah.
And that's coming up here pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's next week, isn't it?
I think starts
next Thursday.
Week. Yeah, it starts next week, I believe. It goes on for 2 weeks.
Other listener made an interesting comment. Isn't it interesting that Prop 1, which was about extending an existing sales tax, passed like crazy? What was it? 80-20, something big. But Amendment 5 got shot down. Listener Darren brings this up. And it would, which would have removed an element of personal taxes, right? On one count.
Yeah, it is I think it's explainable. I mean, there's no secret that Missourians don't like taxes.
Oh, yeah.
With the parks and the soil tax, I think it's something that we've had. First of all, it's very low. I think I've heard it translates to $10 to $20, a year. But I think also we're the show me state.
Yeah.
If you show us that you're going to take our money and be good stewards of it, and you bring your receipts, we have beautiful, clean, lots of parks. They're free. We've made great strides in soil erosion. I think if you show us you're a good steward and we can trust you, I think Missourians are saying, okay, great job.
There you go.
Keep
That's
doing
right.
it.
Go to the right beach with Randy, and the view's not bad either.
I was commenting on you paying to go to the beach. Jamie says, I'm offended that I have to pay to see the women in bikinis at the beach. Back with more Wake Up Missouri on the Morning Bell.
It's Wake Up
We look at manufacturing. These are fresh July reads from the ISM on manufacturing. Comes in much better than expected, 55.6. That would be the best read in over 4 years, since May of 22.
Well, there's Rick Santelli on the economy. Here's Stephanie Bell on the market.
The S&P hit a record high yesterday as we are talking about potentially negotiating with Iran and hopefully keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. So when we look at the markets, we had the Dow up 1.71%, the S&P up 1.79%, the NASDAQ up a whopping 2.59%. As we look at the futures, everything is in the green this morning, so feeling pretty good about that. The biggest winner yesterday was technology, which was up more than 4%. And Randy, we are getting some economic indicators out this week. I think we're due for a jobs report on Friday, I believe.
Yeah.
So we'll be waiting for that. But we got a report about manufacturing earlier this week, and it's really strong. And that's what's been so interesting, I think, this year, Randy, is we kind of get these mixed signals from different reports, but the manufacturing one is really good. What you need to know is they put out this score, and if you're the basic rule, it's the manufacturing PMI. If the score is anything above 50, it means manufacturing is expanding. If you're below 50, it means it's shrinking. And July marked the 7th consecutive month of growth after factories spent much of 2025 in a contraction. So last month in June, we saw it at 53.3, which meant good expansion. They were forecasting 54 in July, and we blew past that at 55.6. So this is important. The strength was, they measure a bunch of different things, but we saw production surge to 58.5. That's the highest level since November of 21. New orders climbed. They look at factory employment. It returned to growth for the first time in 33 months. And so, we talked to our friend Brad Jones about small business and how they're feeling, but this manufacturing report coming in really strong. And I think I wouldn't necessarily have expected that. But Trump's been pushing, hey, I'm going to start, and I am putting all these tariffs on. We got to get back to manufacturing stuff here at home. We really need to strengthen, and we're at risk if we aren't building our own stuff. And it sounds like people are taking that to heart, and some of this is going really well. It's still tough because you talk to people around every day, and they're talking about gas prices. At the same time, you look at your stock portfolio, it's doing pretty good. Manufacturing, pretty good. Interest rates are holding steady. And so if only we could get those gas prices down, I think the overall picture of the economy, Randy.
Yeah.
I feel good about it. I feel good about it. It's just...
And that's despite the Iranian...
I don't check my stock portfolio as many times as I have to go to the gas pump. Maybe that's it. Maybe I should open my stocks up every morning.
And while the GDP pulled back a little bit in the second quarter, it's still that's in the face of headwinds, right, from the Iranian thing, because that has so many ripple effects.
And they say the manufacturing report is particularly important because a lot of times, we've talked to Aaron Hedlund about this, a lot of times it's a lagging indicator. We get the report later and it's talking about last month. The manufacturing report, they say, actually is a projection into the future.
Right.
It's only about 10% of the economy, but it's an important early indicator because oftentimes changes in ordering, hiring, supply chains, those changes are evident to manufacturers before the regular consumer. So it could mean good things to come down the line, Randy.
I think so. I hope that they're manufacturing more missiles, because it looks like that may be on the drawing board unless Iranians are seriously going to do something in the Trump direction. But again, we've heard that song before. We'll see. I found a clip of a guy at a town hall that I just want you to hear some of when we come back. It's pretty inspiring. Welcome back into Wake Up Missouri as we, well, I guess, do a post-mortem on what was an interesting election last night. And in the primaries, a couple of upsets, a couple of very tight races, some for candidates, some not. But I wanted to play for you. You know, remember Joe Wurzelberger, Joe the plumber from Trump 45? Remember, he became sort of an image of the everyman of us. The people, everyday people like you and me that are just trying to make our way through lives, pay the bills, put food on the table, roof over our kids' heads, clothes on their back. And we look around, we're paying our taxes. I pay my taxes. Steph, you pay your taxes? Yeah.
I do.
John, pay your taxes?
You better believe it.
Drake?
Sadly.
Yeah. And then you look where it goes to and you go like, well, man, I got a problem with this and I'm not happy. The politicians keep asking me to pony up, obey the law, but got illegal immigrants. We talked about it last week. How many people, able-bodied people between 18 and 24, millions that are just out of the workforce? What's that all about? And not in school, by the way. Not in school. Well, there was this guy at a town hall up in Cape Cod. And I just thought this was one of those, occasionally you see one of those, I'm mad as heck and I'm not going to take it anymore. And I'm just wondering if this guy speaks for you. Let me know.
Many of them are very well spoken. Many of them are polite. I'm not going to be. I am that taxpayer that several of the people who sat up here and spoke are talking about. What is on the line is very simple. It is a declaration of your allegiance either to the American citizen, the legal tax-paying American citizen, or the chosen community of foreign nationals who have been trafficked into this country for purposes of census data, for purposes of seats, for purposes of power, and for purposes of taxes. I am sick to death of paying for such, and I'm sick to death of being lectured about compassion, about patience and understanding. I have lived here all my life, and I have been required for all 40 years of that life to obey the law and follow the rules. There will be no Social Security check for me when I can't work anymore. I have never once received any of the benefits that have been spoken of here. Nobody is beating down my door to help me fix up my house so that it doesn't collapse on me or lower the cost of the electricity that I have to pay. I don't get health insurance. I can't afford it. But I am punished by this state for not being able to afford it so that people who are in this country illegally can benefit from it and go see the doctor whenever they want. And that is a fact, and I am sick of it. I am not an ununderstanding individual. I am not an uncompassionate individual. But my generosity has been abused, and I am sick of it.
Does he speak for you?
Sounds like he's sick of it.
He speaks for a lot of folks. And I think that may have been in a circuitous way why folks may have voted against phasing out of the income tax, because they saw a potential. They were told by scare ads, and properly so. I mean, it was not specified in the amendment what was going to replace it, and people were worried that I'm already paying enough tax.
Okay, that's a little.
I don't want an unknown. I think that's a hypothesis. I'm throwing that out there.
I get that. But if the government said, if no income tax, but all you have to do is mail in like one of your toes every 10 years, I'm doing it. 100%. Sale or income tax is such a burden on the American people because it hurts the people who are working, who are actually propping up the economy, who are actually productive people in society. But God forbid we let people, whenever they come through our state and purchase stuff, I mean, that could help at all. It's just stupid. The only people that income tax is hurting is the people who are single-handedly making Missouri great.
And I think this brings up a really good point, because Drake's just as angry as that guy, but he's kind of angry about different stuff. And last night, it was clear voters were angry, but the way the races shook out, it's not. They weren't all angry about the same thing.
No, you're right. Well, they're angry about the status quo. No doubt about that. The question is, are we going to change in the direction of redistribution, socialism, more tax, more spend?
Well, and the two amendments, too. There were some of the pundits out there said the timing may have been off with the economical challenges and all that everybody's facing, and people without even doing the deep dive are like, oh, a tax? No, thanks.
You know, I talked to a couple of seniors who said, well, I live on a fixed income. I said, well, tell me more about that. You know, and so I don't pay much income tax. Now you're going to make me pay sales tax? I said, did you know that there's no sales tax on groceries unless prepared foods and stuff? Well, it's a limited, it is a sales tax. What is it, 1.25% state sales tax? It's low. You know, there are already accommodations. I said, tell me about your investment income, your retirement. Well, I do get this, and I have a pension. And I go, oh, really? Got any investment income? Yeah. That wouldn't be.
It's hard to convince people in the moment because they're thinking, what about me? What about right now? And that's, it was going to be, I mean, no one said it was going to be easy. Yeah. And it's still not, I mean, it's not easy. We agree the economy is stagnant. The economy has changed. And I don't think this conversation is over. I think we're going to continue to have this conversation because the facts are the facts. We aren't growing our population. We aren't competing well with other states. And people think we heard a resounding no yesterday. There's no question about that. They said not this plan. So then my question is what? And I've been asking it. What is the plan? Because I don't think we can keep doing nothing.
We have, people weighing in say there's only a finite number of percent of monthly income a person can pay and be able to live, let alone support others. I don't know. Another listener, can somebody explain to me why all the realtors were against Amendment 4 and 5? I think about 5, were they concerned about maybe a tax on the sale of, so if you buy a $500,000 home, 5% of that is what, $25,000, right? Or
realtor services. I mean,
but that's not a reality in any of the states that I know of that I looked into.
And Governor Kehoe said he wouldn't sign a bill that had a tax on real estate. I think 10 years ago they went to the ballot and they got an amendment passed that said no expansion, basically no future sales tax or taxes on services for real estate. And they want to protect that, right? And that's what we heard from the pro A5 folks is the people who were against it are the people who are carved out now, who are protected, and they want to protect their existing protections.
Gary says Randy keeps using the word fear and scare tactics. Try using the word truth. You want to give elected officials the ability to tax anything they want? Well, now they tax your work. They tax your work. And when Democrats get into play, I guarantee you your income tax rates will go up. I'll buy you a steak if I'm wrong,
yeah,
Gary, when that day comes on.
It's pretty bogus to argue, well, you want to give the legislature all this discretion. I mean, you know what they're going to do this session when they show up in January? They've got a lot of discretion already. Yeah. And so if you think that, you're protected from whatever they might do, and especially protected if the Democrats get in power.
And Gary's right when he says the devil you know. That's right. That's the argument. But I think it's scare tactics when you say, well, they're going to tax health care. They're going to tax this. Well, that's an assumption.
And ultimately, they're accountable. I mean, look at some. I mean, they're still elected. These House members come up every 2 years. You think if they slap a tax down, a 17% down on groceries, we're not all going to show up in the polls and kick them out of there?
Right.
We've seen it. I mean, we've seen it in some communities, obviously, with data centers. If these people make decisions you don't like, they're still accountable to you as the voter.
But Gary, you're right. People, even if they're not happy with an income tax, at least they know the score. And they are afraid of what legislators may do. I think Gary's nailing it here. People don't trust legislators anymore. They don't trust their politicians. I don't care who they are.
And they don't like change.
Maybe that's because politicians launch ads against one another that are absolutely, very often, totally misleading. Only part of the truth, not the whole truth. The political game has become so mean, so sordid, and if someone's honest, they get crucified by the other side unfairly very often, and that applies to people I support and I don't support. Someone may in a procedural vote for something that has an inclusion in it that 95% of a big bill is like, man, right down the middle, conservative, and there's one little component that's a little bit of a liberal giveaway. That and the next election cycle, he voted for handouts to homeless when he actually voted for, this and this and this and this. That's the most conservative things you could want.
Well, he's talking about which way the political wind's blowing. We heard the argument all through the redistricting of the congressional maps that, oh, yeah, you do it this time, wait and see what happens when the Democrats get in power. And they change the districts all around to their liking.
Yeah.
So.
And the Democrats up nationally have already said it out loud. They're going to nuke the filibuster the minute they get power. Ellen, welcome into Wake Up, Missouri.
Good morning.
Morning.
Remember on the fifth grade, on the playground in fifth grade, and it's like we learned. Sixth graders made and enforced the rules. Teachers turned a blind eye. If you complained about it, if you did something about it, and you got in trouble, it's like both parties went to the office, both parties got punished, but one side didn't necessarily have to pay the price. And so we learned, don't complain, because then you become a problem. So we learned. So we learned to be obedient. We learned to do what we were told. And that's, I think, what we're getting upset with right now is because who's making the rules? Who's enforcing them? Why do I have forced compliance, but other people get completely out of it? There is no administration or teachers anymore monitoring it that are actually going to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. And when they do, they get punished. They get doxxed. They get all these problems. And we are so timid and shy. But I think people are coming out of that right now.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing.
Okay. Protest votes. All right. Thanks. Ellen, thank you very much. Stephen, hang on. Get to you in just about 5. Stay tuned.
It's Wake
So it's very interesting about information, misinformation. We have a listener who said problem with the tax amendment is that it didn't give a certain date for stopping the existing tax, but it was clear on how it would be phased out. Only if the revenues were still supporting expenditures, right?
Yeah, for every extra dollar that came in from sales tax, they were required to lower the income tax, which they're not required to do currently.
And then another bit of misinformation are how much the sales tax was going to be raised to. That's true. The way it was written, they could jack it up as high as they want. That's wrong. During the phase out, which would have to happen over 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. The sales tax revenues, whether it was by a rate increase and or a broadening of the base, taxing more things. And for instance, the prime example is, okay, we used to buy CDs or VCR tapes or, LP records. Now everything's digital and that's not taxed in many cases, right?
Well, and think about other things. I mean, the legislature was going to have discretion, but, there's some talk about tax on services. There's some talk about car repairs or salons or, lawn maintenance, right? Okay.
Joe the plumber.
Well, I think about my parents growing up, right? What did my dad do? He went and bought a Craftsman lawnmower. You know what he did? He paid sales tax on that. I don't own a lawnmower. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are using services in a way that we used to not do that. My mom did her own nails. I don't do my own nails now, right? My father-in-law still fixes his own car. I take my car to a repair shop. We're a much more service-based economy now than we ever have been. And none of those things, even though you're getting the same thing. If you bought the lawnmower in the 80s and you mowed your own lawn, you paid a lot of sales tax on that Craftsman riding lawnmower. I'm not paying sales tax. It's the same thing. My lawn's still getting cut, right? So
But the other thing about this is that if they raise the sales tax, it could only be to top up what the decrease in the income tax was happening. So it was sort of a seesaw kind of a thing. And I had a question, and the research I can find is that, remember, it's sort of there are restrictions against expanding the sales use tax to previously untaxed services as of January 2015. In January 2015, there were restrictions put on certain things that couldn't be taxed. Apparently, after the 5 years,
supported.
What I understand is after the 5 years, that would remain the baseline. It would revert to that.
Well, they can only expand it up until we reduce the income tax fully. And then it also required that they could never put an income tax back on us.
Right.
So,
and I think everyone making some super good points here, and I absolutely, it resonates with me. I have a I'm sort of an ideological kind of a guy, and you probably figured that out. I just don't think it is proper to be punished through taxation for your work. When you tax something, you tend to get less of it. I personally prefer to buy things in a place where the sales tax rate is lower than where it's higher. So the places that are selling things in those higher sales tax venues may not get as much of my business if I have a choice on one side of the line or the other side of the line. You tax something, you get less of it. That's true. When you tax people's work, you tend to get less of it. There are people that I've done this in the past where, man, last year I made X amount, and if I get a raise, I'm going to be in a new tax bracket. I don't think why would I work extra hours? Now, I have done that foolishly and paid more and took home more the next year because I made just a little bit, $1,000 into the next tax bracket. I looked at my wife and go, why the heck did I do that? We could have just gone on a little extra day of vacation. Now, that's not my foundation. That's not my infrastructure. That's not my wiring. But I think a lot of people think that through. It's like the harder I work, the more I get taxed. And it just philosophically doesn't resonate with Randy, but I understand everyone else's point of view. I get it.
No, Randy, you are 100% in the right here.
I don't know. Well, buy used, no sales tax, says Terry.
A blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again. Is that what they say, Randy?
Yeah, thank you for being with us all morning. And I enjoyed all the input, whether it was favorable or not. It's always favorable when you listen to Wake Up Missouri.
Bye.